Hello friends, welcome to another video of Mastering Deep Learning with TensorFlow. I'm Vikraman. In this video, I'm going to provide you some tips, suggestions and best practices in order to use TensorFlow effectively. So let's get started. When you're starting to work on your algorithm during the initial stages till the deployment stage, try to stick on with Jupyter development environment using Jupyter notebooks. The reason is it's really easy to find out what went wrong and debug your errors when you're using a Jupyter notebook. And basically Python is an interpreter language, and one of the best advantages of TensorFlow over other frameworks is that it has a native API for Python, and you can make the best use of these resources when you're using Jupyter console. And even if you're using a virtual machine, it's you should try to configure your Jupyter notebook so in your virtual machine and connect it to your laptop or PC. I've personally used GCP, AWS and Paperspace, and it was been a very straightforward process for configuring them. Whenever you're opening a new TensorFlow session, make sure you're resetting the default graph. By doing so, you're making sure that none of the variables from the previous graph are clashing with the variables in the current graph. Once you have coded your model and defined all the variables, it's always a good practice to go through the list of mathematical operations and variable definitions. It will give you a good intuition now about what's going behind the screen. You can do so by two methods inside your Jupyter console by giving the code in the screen below, or you can also use TensorBoard. In your model definition, whenever you're defining a mathematical operation, try to use functions from TensorFlow's Math package wherever possible. Even if it's a simple statement like c equal to a plus b, it can be easily written as c equal to tf.add a comma b. This increases the compatibility with TensorFlow ecosystem, and with the advent of TensorFlow 1.0, all the math operations now very closely resemble to the NumPy package, and a lot of new operations have also been defined. Try to use higher level APIs of TensorFlow instead of using the vanilla version. The reason is they will significantly reduce the number of lines of code, and they have some very useful and handy functions like data pre-processing, data augmentation, and lots of other cool stuff. But if you're not a big fan of using these APIs, you can always create your own API like them, and use it in your code. Some of the noteworthy APIs are Keras, TFLearn, and Slim from TensorFlow team. Give names to all the layers and variables whichever you're defining. By doing so, you can actually grab the value of that particular tensor easily, and this would be very useful in when you're trying to visualize the values of that particular variable. And the use of namescopes cannot be more emphasized when you're using TensorBoard, which brings us to the next step. And try to use TensorBoard in your code, even if it's a very simple code. TensorBoard has lots of advantages, and with the TensorFlow 1.0, TensorBoard has reached new heights, and I'll be covering the advantages in a different video. But for now, I would give you a tip to use TensorBoard in your model. Before TensorFlow came into existence, Caffe was one of the most popular and widely used deep learning frameworks. The reason I'm mentioning about Caffe is that it has a nice demarcation between training phase and testing phase, and it had an option to save the weights by default after every few iterations. When TensorFlow came into existence, a lot of tutorials started booming up, but there was not much emphasis to create some difference in code between the training phase and testing phase, and to save weights after few iterations. The reason you need to make a difference between your training phase and the testing phase is that some of the layers like dropout and regularization techniques, which you would be using in the training phase. You won't be using in the testing phase. And saving the weights after every few iterations would help you to revert back to that point and see the weights, see the accuracy at that point. So a good idea to is give some flags that differentiate between training and testing phase, and in the language of TensorFlow, create some checkpoints after every few iterations. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Try to implement these tips and suggestions during your next coding session with TensorFlow, and make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. See you soon.